good news, good news, good news. Thank everybody for coming out so early. I mean, I know it's like a little after 12, but a little after 12. But I thank you guys for coming out because you really didn't have to be here. You could have been 1,000 other places, and it's very, very nice to know that there's something here that hopefully we can offer you to help you to continue on your journey with the things that are important to you. But thank you for coming out, and let's hopefully try to do that. All right? Good news.
All right. Well, Kai, it wasn't that long ago that you were not a household name. You weren't stamping your passport with a bunch of stamps from India to Italy to China and all these places that bodybuilding has taken you. A lot of fans forget that it's not just about the sum totals of wins and losses, but it's a global sport. You've pretty much become a missionary for bodybuilding, health and fitness. It seems like everyone's still clinging to the idea that on some level you may wind up back on that Mr. Olympia stage, but let's tell them how you got there, because that was not an easy road. As a matter of fact, in the beginning, you were almost, like a lot of bodybuilders, at the brink of walking away from your passion simply because of economics. But you chose to stick around, and now you're living the dream. Let's go back. Let's take it back to like 2005, 2006. Where were you in terms of trying to live out your dream as a bodybuilder?
You know, okay, that's a pretty interesting way of looking at it. To go back, I probably have to, okay, so let me say this, and I know it's one of those Kai Greene answers, so you might have to take a little while, you know, sit back, relax, and I'm gonna try to make sense of the things that I have going on in my head to answer the question that you just asked.
We'll get to that. Get to the question later, go ahead.
But in order to understand the miracle of the achievement, you almost have to know a lot more about the humbleness of the beginning, you know, and to understand a little bit more of how interesting the set of challenges were to begin with. I had an interview yesterday, and I was fortunate enough to sit there with four-time Mr. Olympia, Jay Cutler, and I got a chance to really learn some very interesting things while being exposed to that experience, and I want to get to those in a minute. But to answer the question that you just asked me, in the very beginning, there was nothing but objections that I was able to see. In other words, wherever I looked, there was multiple objections. So it wasn't, and the objections weren't just the finances or not having or lack thereof, but it was the support, it was the resources, it was also the personal structure necessary to even recognize your own power and your ability to realize that you have a choice or even a say in this matter. All right, so what I'm doing now is trying to take you back to another time when you were talking about a young man that's not even a man yet, he's a boy, and he's now in an institutional facility, and in that institutional facility, there is not the ability to decide for himself even what time he's going to go to bed, what time he's going to get up, or even if he can work out. In fact, to do those things is a demonstration of something else that would have been looked at as problematic. When I started the diet, my first diet, I was thought to be on suicide watch. So when I started eating bread and water because I wanted to get ready for a bodybuilding competition that pretty much, for the most part, was thought to be impossible, because it was improbable to imagine that you would be allowed to be released from the facility to go out into the community, participate in a bodybuilding event, and then come back to the institutional facility and then be locked up again with your trophy. It was unheard of, you know? So what I'm trying to say is that even in that, there was a big objection, you know? So the idea to diet and to train and to prepare was only an objection, or at least it could have been. But I wanted to see something else. And what I'm trying to say is that what had to happen was I was forced to really get a keen understanding of what it is to be a visionary, what it is to develop faith, what it is to develop the personal strength to see the things that don't yet exist as if they were, and to believe it as real as gravity, even when the picture around my immediate space or my immediate sphere of influence would have said no. Objection, objection, objection. So what I'm trying to say is that from the very beginning of my personal experience in this thing that we now know as a monumental achievement in bodybuilding, or in the life of a bodybuilder seeking to express himself as a top-tier champion in bodybuilding, in order to realize the magnitude of that, we have to look at the beginning. And I dare say all of that to say this, that even when I thought that I did not have, even in the midst of what was perceivable objections, like the lack of finance, the lack of support, the lack of enough personal development, there still was a wealth of possibility. It took some time to learn how to see it. It took the development of some skills to learn how to tap into it. But the possibility was still there. Because the most important thing that I needed, even when I didn't have the finances or the support or the social resources, what we had was desire. And it's important to say this now because everybody in this room, I believe, is joined here for a reason. And I believe that reason is the possibility of increase. It's nice to look at an athlete and say, wow, you accomplished something that's really cool. I respect that. I salute you. But I think my responsibility in this moment is to share with you how much we have in common, how much you have in common with that athlete, and recognize that the opportunity to personal success and achievement is not foreign to you. Just like that athlete that was looking at a bunch of objections, if you look in your life and see a bunch of objections, understand this, that what we have in common is the possibility through desire. And desire can trump all of those objections.
And speaking to desire, Ronnie Coleman was sitting here a little bit ago sharing with everyone that he was a pizza delivery guy. And he was in college, and then he became a police officer, and he was challenged through a free gym membership. If he would compete, he would get a free gym membership, and his desire came from the words free gym membership, and it led him to 8 Mr. Olympias, Ronnie Coleman's signature series, and traveling the world and becoming one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time. Kai, you come from very humble beginnings, and it seems like the desire is what brought you here. In that desire, did you think it was gonna be like this? I mean, this is ridiculous. How many people you got following you on Instagram? Like 2-3 million people. You're a global household name, you're an actor. Did I mention he's an artist? And he's one of the greatest bodybuilding posers of all time. And he's also a very educated historian of the sport. So the cerebral mind of Kai Greene always goes back to the beginnings. He didn't just fall into bodybuilding, he's a student of bodybuilding. And trying to get into that mind, Kai, we all kind of just start off lifting weights. You obviously used it as a tool maybe to overcome some obstacles. And those obstacles are many compared to a lot of other people. I mean, I was a teenage national champion, turned pro 3 years out of high school. Some people want to say I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth, but I was the son of a janitor. It just, genetics favor certain individuals more than others. You came the long way. But I remember you were almost, it seemed, 1 foot out the door. When did you realize that this is something that I can use as a vehicle to do other things? I mean, being a bodybuilding champion, somewhere along the way you believed that you could win. And when you begin to win, when did you believe that maybe you could become great as a bodybuilder?
See, I think that's one of the things that it's very difficult for me now to process that way, because I don't see it just that way. I think that you know, and I want to say this correctly, because I know that there's an opportunity and responsibility in this moment to speak to a lot of people at varying places in their life, you know. And I want to speak very responsibly to that. So my aim in this moment is to try to be very, very, very honest. It may sound kind of weird, but it is, again, my attempt to be honest, to speak loudest to that idea of increase for everybody in this room, all right? Even myself, you know. We might have a breakthrough right in here in a minute. Watch out. I think the thing now, you know, it's funny because when I started exercising and training and stuff, if you asked me a question like that, I probably would have given you a lot of other things in an effort to try to answer it, you know. But now I recognize that I'm not a boy anymore, and I've had a lot of opportunity to grow from where I started to where I am. And now when I look back, I'm able to do it with a keener insight. I remember not Shawn Ray. I'm sitting next to Shawn Ray. I remember Lila Brada giving an interview at one of the Olympias, and very quickly he said something like, as he prepared for each Olympia, each year, on the other side of that preparation, he emerged with new insights into himself. And I remember being a teenager and hearing that and wondering what that meant. But now I know on this side of the experience, as we go and we grow from where we start from, there are things that happen along the way that reveal ourselves to us. In other words, there's opportunity in each step that will teach you new things, not only about yourself, but the world around you and how you respond to it. I think in the very beginning, there was an idea of larger possibility that I was able to respond very well to. The first time I looked at a magazine and saw a physique that captured my imagination and spoke to those other things inside of me that allowed me to think very honestly and sincerely about what could be. The first time I looked on the silver screen and saw an image larger than life that spoke to me, I think there in that moment was the expression of something else. And that is the idea of a larger possibility that I wanted for me. It's that idea of increase that I believe that I continued to search for. And that was really the beginning of the journey. I may have said that I wanted a bigger chest and that I want a bigger pair of arms. But the truth is, had I gotten those things in the immediate moment, I would not have been satisfied with that. Because the truth is, what I was looking for was much more than that. And it's taken me now the better part of my experience as an athlete, as a developing man, as a developing businessman, as a developing actor, and all these other things that I'm now realizing are part of my personal experience today. That essentially, at the beginning, that's what I wanted. That was the larger possibility that spoke to me. We may think that it's sets and reps sometimes when, well, you know, I'm not able to look at this for the larger picture of what the return is, the fuller return that I'm looking for. And sometimes by default, we may say, oh, well, you know, I just want to, you know, just improve, you know, just want to get a little bigger. Well, what does that mean? You know, I want to, you know, I want to be able to bench like 315, you know, for 6 reps. What does that mean? Well, I just want to be able to do it. Why? I found that each time I was able to answer the question, why? I was able to get a little bit better, but improve a hell of a lot more and see a larger return. Ultimately, the largest return that I was looking for in the very beginning, I'm able to see now. I'm able to see that I'm a lot closer to it now than I was then. But if I would have had to have been explained, or had it explained to me then, all the things that it would take in order to get to this place, I probably would have been so discouraged that I wouldn't have even started.
So let me get some perspective, because I knew while I was lifting weights, I wanted to be Mr. Olympia.
That was the sole purpose of my bodybuilding career, was to become Mr. Olympia. Even when I was going backwards in placing, I would go back to the gym to find a way to try to move upwards in my placing. But the reason I was lifting was for the sheer result of being Mr. Olympia. Ronnie Coleman might slip on a banana peel. One of the athletes might wind up sick, maybe miss a plane. I couldn't win if I wasn't there. So even in my losing, every set, every rep, every meal was leading towards me potentially winning the Mr. Olympia. Are you saying that you had bigger ideas than that?
Absolutely.
What are they?
Well, like I said, in the very beginning for me, there was a lot of challenges. A lot of challenges. So many challenges, in fact, that a lot of people would say statistically, for a young man in the position that I was in, you are supposed to fall very short of the larger idea of fuller fulfillment of your personal potential. I remember sitting in an institutional facility and hearing the roll calls each morning, and every Wednesday or Thursday they would have these meetings where the social workers would assemble on one side and the directors of the facility and institutional workers would assemble on another, and then somewhere in between you'd have this rivers of residents. And I was a resident then. And I remember the leader of that meeting would, read off the current events, and they would talk about the various other guys that you would hear. It'd probably be about 6 or 7 names that you remembered that would come to, or in some way you had a relationship with, and now they were no longer there. They'd now graduated to prison, or they were now dead. The idea was that 90% of you guys are looking at the same possible reality: locked up or dead. Think about that for a minute, because as sure as I have, an interesting set of challenges that we're talking about, I would still go on and go into experiences where I would now have scars that are very difficult to hide. Proof positive that you've been somewhere, you've experienced something. I'm saying this to answer the question at the very beginning. What I was looking for was something to become really good at. Something that would identify purpose, that would demonstrate that I am somebody. I want to be good at something. I heard Viola Davis, who's a professional, well-accomplished actress, Academy Award winner, exactly. At the receipt of her Academy Award, I remember hearing her say something like, she wanted to find something that she could do that spoke to the best that she had to offer. Something that would make the reason for your being here to make sense. I now recognize that today as that larger possibility. At the very beginning of this experience that I'm talking about right now, I at least understood that where I'm at is not where I want to be. And I was able to understand that there was a very, very positive benefit to exercising that spoke to a therapeutic release. I did it, and I believed because it felt good. And I believed that while I was doing it, I was able to connect with something that was larger than me. And it spoke to my spirit. It spoke very seriously to the things that really meant the most to me, that I couldn't articulate as clearly even back then. But for me, it was very real.
But aren't you kind of, in a way, teasing us? Because you showed us the best of what you have to offer, and then you stopped. Like, you haven't competed in the Olympia for 2 years. You were first runner-up 3 times. Everyone's waiting for the Phil Heath, Kai Greene rematch. It looked like you guys were going to come to blows. They were standing on stage. You flipped a ponytail, hit Phil, and then we're waiting for we want to see the get down, and you've been standing on the sidelines for 2 years. So has that ship sailed, or do you think that's not part of the bigger picture of Kai Greene? I mean, you were there. You've done the Olympia. It's behind you. It's something that is not going to validate you any longer, or is that door always still relatively open?
Well, here's the thing. How many people in this audience has ever experienced a bad breakup? You know, you had that girlfriend or that boyfriend that, you know, you really cared about, you loved each other very intensely, and then it was over. Well, I saw a few hands.
I think they want to know why it's over.
Well, hear me out. Because regardless to if you asked her, why did you break up? She'll say a litany of things that he never did, and he wasn't, and he didn't, and it's, and I. And then if you ask him, why did you break up? He'd tell you, well, you know what she did, and she never, and you know what she did, she had the nerve to. But here's the truth, because I've been through that. And I remember a girlfriend calling on my phone, leaving a message. You remember back when you had the answer machines? You remember the answer machines? Come on, somebody. Do you remember the answer machines? Yes, no, yes? That's a yes. You remember how you would come home, press the button after you saw the light flashing, and then you'd wait, and you'd hear the messages that would come up. I'll never forget. The girlfriend said, I hate you. You will see. I was the best thing that ever happened to you, and the best thing that will ever be. You will be nothing without me. Oh no.
Was that the people from the Olympia calling your house?
Man, that's messed up. Because anybody who's ever heard that, if you have heard it, then quietly just sit there with me and bear with me for one moment, because there's a realization that's real strong in that. You know, man, the best thing that ever happened. Man, you know, we may have been able to do some really great things. We may have been able to grow. We may have been able to make some money. We may have been able to speak very positively to people that looked at us and saw our relationship and said, oh, wow, they're in love. That's so beautiful. Good luck. But the fact that that relationship has now run its course, if I'm expected to sit here and worry and cry and think, oh, she was the best thing that ever happened to me, it's over. What will happen to me now? Should I just shrivel up and die? Should the boyfriend sit and shrivel up and die? If that was your girlfriend and she said that to you, would you turn around and say, you know what, girlfriend, you're right, you should just shrivel up and die, if her boyfriend called her and left her that message? No, not if you care about it.
Go get a new one. Sounds like you went to the Arnold Classic and fell in love all over again.
Well, honestly, the truth is, in order to move on from that point, you have to remember this. It was the larger possibility that I've been in love with. The ability to be able to grow and to develop in the right way. To see my dreams realized, my larger dreams realized, and recognize that I am something of value. I've discovered on my journey to this point that I am a thinking center, a creative thinking center, capable of doing great things with my life. And anyone that's ever sat or found themselves sitting at the darkest moments of their personal despair will know with me very honestly that that is the road to redemption. That is the road to feeling better. That is the road to building yourself back to that place of positive possibility and achievement. So I'm not trying to say anything negative about anybody else or any other business in that matter, you know. But I am trying to speak very positively to the people that can hear what I'm saying and understand that you're larger than the circumstances and situations that present themselves. And you're capable of, if necessary, even climbing to a higher stage. Because the thing that's most important to you is your goal, and your goal, my goal, was stepping into the realization of the larger possibility.
That's a good place to hold up, because I know some of you guys have some questions for Kai that may be able to get answered. Because I think I asked him, is he going to go back to the Olympia a long time ago, yesterday.
Yesterday, really?
I don't know. Let's try to figure it out. Maybe you guys will be able to pose the question to get the answers that you guys might want, because Kai is very cerebral. And again, I go back to my humble beginnings of lifting weights and wanting to become Mr. Olympia. That dream didn't end until Ronnie Coleman decided he wasn't going to let go of the Olympia title for me. And then I went on to my larger possibilities, which did not include an ugly breakup with Mr. Sandow and the Olympia organization. What would your first question be to Kai Greene? Choose your words wisely, because we could be here for the rest of the day, but go ahead, you got them. It's a little word that says O-N. It's a bodybuilding crowd. You've got to speak very direct. Go ahead, we can hear you. If you just shout it out, I'll repeat your question.
Well, it's a little bit of a technical question. We've seen a lot of videos for you about your workouts and how you begin your workouts, all of the things that you do, the Train with Kai kind of series. And we see that you train for a very long period of time, like an hour, maybe two, maybe if I'm correct. And we all have learned, like all the beginners here know, that your workout should not maybe last for more than 45 to an hour or something like that. What makes me go beyond that without breaking my muscles or going to any kind of catabolic, or I don't know the terms for it, but you know you understand what I mean, I think. It's just the length of the workout itself. What's the optimal length of a workout?
Well, I will say this, that, and I appreciate your question, that's really cool. To speak to a beginner, first thing I'd like to point out too is that this has been something that's been very important to me for a very, very, very long time. And this is something that I've obsessed over for, the better part, if not more than 20 years. So I will say that in an effort to answer your question, that there's a lot of things that I've gotten a chance to experience between, my very beginning as you said, as a beginner, and, ultimately to where I am presently. And I think that all of those things, I'm able to pull from while working in the trenches of the experience. But let me first answer your question by saying this. I think that your goals identify the method that you apply to the attainment of that goal. So, yeah, you may have read somewhere where it's, short and sweet is the easier road to getting to that desired end result. I've learned though that in order to be great at what I'm trying to do, I need not to be afraid of doing the work, And one thing that I've seen expressed in the miracle of my personal experience is that the work equals a positive result, So a lot of times some of the beginners may err on the side of, well, I don't want to do too much, and I don't know, and because I don't know what actually enough is just yet, I can end up erring on the side of doing too little or not enough. So the action may be there, but it may not be enough of an efficient action to yield the desired end result. So sometimes what happens is you can see a person, they start training, they've been exercising now for 6 months, 3 years, but because of ineffective or inefficient application of being able to do enough of the quality work necessary, what happens is what they could have attained in 6 months takes them 7 years. So yeah, I'm at a place where I'm going to get in the gym, I'm going to train, but when I trained, at some point when I understood that the work is something that I can't avoid, how many people that have bad legs? Just really underdeveloped leg development, just underdeveloped. And then you ask them to be honest with you, what do you think about that? How do you approach your training? They'll tell you, well, I hate squats. I'm sorry, is there a problem with your knees? No, not really. Do you have any problem with your back? No. Is there a pre-existing medical issue that should tell you not to do? No. So why don't you squat? I just don't feel comfortable. It feels unnatural. Yeah. So anyway, I'm saying this, that I've learned to love the work. I'm gonna work harder than a coach or a trainer may say to do, and you better believe I'm gonna work even harder than the stuff that would ever be published in the magazine when I'm in the throes of trying to work towards seeing my dream realized, because my dream is important to me. So yeah, to answer your question, I don't think you can work enough. And I think the people that are really, really successful at one time or another, if you look at their protocol, it may seem that they're borderline obsessive in the actions that they take towards the goal's achievement.
Yeah, and I don't think you should go in a gym looking at the clock. You're talking about someone going in the gym 20 minutes, 25. I never went in a gym for 20 minutes. It takes me that long to get to the damn place. So, I mean, can you imagine if your lawyer studied for an hour a day, or your dentist is in there, or your ophthalmologist putting in an hour, and he's gonna come and work on you? I mean, these bodybuilders, that's what they do. They don't go to the gym thinking, how long is this gonna take me? They go to the gym thinking, what do I have to do? And what's the best way to do it? And if you're training with someone like Mike Tyson, can you imagine Mike Tyson getting ready for a heavyweight fight? Kai Greene shows up at the gym to be a trainer as Mike Tyson's getting ready for the heavyweight fight. How light do you think that sparring session Mike Tyson will take it because it's Kai Greene? Mike Tyson will try to tear him apart because it's going to make him a better boxer when the day comes. So when you throw two bodybuilders into a gym and one's getting ready for a competition, it's like a heavyweight fight. I didn't have the pleasure of training with Kai, but I do know that if when I was doing what I did and he was doing it at his level, it would be like a heavyweight fight, because I don't want him to embarrass me, and I know he doesn't want to get embarrassed by me. So you have to remember who you're training to beat, who you're training to stand next to. I always use the analogy of an artist. You take three canvases and set them up there with three artists. You give them the same brushes, same oils, and you ask them to paint a picture. All three of those artists, in their mind, have a different vision of what they're going to paint. One might paint a flower, another one might paint a landscape of the ocean, another one might draw a picture of a car. And then they turn them around, unveil them to the audience, and the judges have to pick a winner.
AKA Mr. Getting It Done. Not because I found something that I thought sounded really good, but because when I locked myself in the solitude of my own mind and I was in the process of working towards the achievement of my own goals, you know, one of the things I heard myself saying over and over again is, am I getting it done? Is it done? Is it done yet? No? Then I got more work to do. I'm serious about this right now. I want this more than I want to relax. In fact, I can't relax. How many times have you been getting ready for the biggest show of your career and found yourself wake up in the middle of the night? I gotta do cardio right now. I can't sleep.
That's never happened to me.
No?
But I get it.
I would get up and go to the gym at like 3:30 in the morning. Went to bed at like maybe 11. It's 3:30 and I got something to do. I got places to go right now. Why? Because I want to be ready. I want to be ready in advance. And you know what? I learned how to do that. Now I had a really cool coach. I had a lot of really wonderful influences that have come into my life since the beginning to, you know, another time, maybe 5 or 7 years ago. And I was able to benefit from a lot of the wisdom that I had available to me, but in large part because I was able to do the work when they weren't around. In fact, I was able to do enough work by myself that part of the process of attracting them to me and into my life to help me at the next stage of my development as an athlete, part of that work was being able to do the work then. You know, there's a movie, Men in Black. There's a scene in this film that always spoke to me. The character Tommy Lee Jones, he played this, the actor Tommy Lee Jones played a character that was a veteran MIB agent. And while in the trenches of an incredible experience, he finds a guy that had no training, he had not the right weapons or anything, but he immediately chooses to make him an MIB agent. And later on, when he was asked, why did you do that? Why did you make him aware of all of this like sophisticated stuff that is technically supposed to be secret to the world outside of the MIB agency? He said, because I watched this guy chase down an encephalopod, which if you knew what an encephalopod was one of the most notoriously, incredibly dangerous characters to run after and try to deal with. So much so that veteran MIB workers would have just chose not to even really want to mess with him unless they had 30 or 40 other sophisticated, technologically advanced things with them to do it. But he was this man that wasn't afraid. He may have been afraid, but he was willing to do the work. He was so focused on hitting the goal that later on you had to stand and marvel and say, wow, if he was able to do all of this without the resources that the typical veteran MIB agent would have, then man, imagine what he could do if he did have the resource available. I think everything that we do allows us to be seen as an example of. In other words, I think you're always auditioning something in your day-to-day actions. You put on display how you really think or what you really feel when we look at what you do in the course of your day. So if you're working in the idea of wanting to increase, wanting to speak to, being able to identify yourself as an advancing man, then it becomes your responsibility then to not be afraid of the work. Do it dutifully. And with that, what you do is you send out a really cool audition tape that pulls back to you a response from the world that says, oh, wow, I didn't know you could do that. Hey, have you ever thought about doing this? New opportunities, I'm saying, will come to you as a result of doing it. So yeah.
No, that was heavy, that was deep. And the thing about those new opportunities, I think I have a responsibility to still ask the question, even though we've gotten into that mind with all those opportunities.
Watch out.
Has the Mr. Olympia ship sailed? Because you're like Phil Heath's encephalopod. You were the guy that's supposed to take this guy down, that's not afraid, that has done the work, that is capable, that could potentially take the title, and yet the options that are afforded to you because you've done the work doesn't sound like that's a high priority on the list of things left to do on your agenda.
Well, I never want to say anything negative, I hear the question, and stranger things can happen.
Stranger things
can happen. I mean, it would be cool to be able to say, hey, look, Kai Greene did blah, blah, blah. I'm definitely not trying to do anything in the way of, trying to promote something that, I haven't been paid to do, or haven't been, rightly, addressed. We live in a day and age where, honestly, you have to be responsible, and it's one thing to get lost in the play experience, but if at the end of the day, the play experience does not yield the right return that it's supposed to, and everybody else is over there dancing and feeling good at the end of the night, but you're not, then you have to look at that. You have to really understand why, and if the right conversations that would make it so that we all are able to speak happily and being, in that rightful place of really cool exchange, then sometimes you may have to become a little bit more expansive on your vision,
Did he answer my question?
Yes, he did.
He did?
But here's the thing, because you know what? It's so funny, because somebody might say, just say yes, or just say no. Just give it to me, guys, straight.
Not from you.
But here's the thing, because right now, there's a lot of responsibility on your shoulder. If I were to speak as candidly as I could, there's someone that can turn around and say, wow, you know what, you are not handling your power and your power in a very responsible way. Life and death is in the power of the tongue, and sometimes if you don't know how to speak mindfully of that, you can actually say things that will cause more damage, than a little bit. So much damage, in fact, that to say I'm sorry afterward doesn't really matter. doesn't even matter. How many people in this room have ever had that experience before?
Saying sorry?
Saying sorry. Or somebody told you sorry, right? After they did something that was just very damaging. So much so that you would have wished that, dude, before you did that, I really wish you would have thought about it and maybe made a different choice. Please. So I just understand I'm in a place where it may seem very easy and simple. Hey man, just say this. But if you said this and you did it the wrong way, hey man, you got a lawsuit. What? Hey man, you said it this way, you know what? You've just hurt the people that were enthusiasts and really cared. How many times have you ever been in the gym and you're training and you see that guy that you respect and you believe knows better, and you ask him, hey, I'm sorry, I worked up the nerve. It took me the last 3 weeks to work up this nerve to ask you, big guy in the gym, how do I get bigger arms? And the big guy in the gym looked back at you and didn't acknowledge just how valuable you held his opinion. And he tells you something that kind of hurts your feelings. You don't have, look at your arm, man. You can never have arms like me, he said. He might not have said that, but because he responded the way that he did, without the sensitivity and the thoughts for all of that, what he says is just as damaging. You could never be as good as me. Why are you here? Go home. And you did it defeated.
Thoughts become things, right?
Right, so if we want to do anything, you want to speak to the positive. So if we say, hey dude, are you going to do, listen, I'm working really hard. I've recognized some things that are really a larger part of what it is that I can do and that I want to do. And you know, if it is that you're going to play games and play as you do, that's okay. You know, because I can be more expansive with my vision and I can continue to speak to the positive increase that is important to me. And I'm going to do it. And I can.